Blairing Out Show.
This is a Blairing Out with Eric Blair show, and I'm proud to have drummer Simon Phillips on the show today. Simon, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Now, what brings you out here to the Namm show?
Wow, what brings anybody to the Namm show? I think it's one of the nicest things is actually just bumping into people that you haven't seen for years. I bumped into a keyboard player today. I last saw him 20 years ago. And we spent like 2 months on the road 20 years ago with Stanley Clark. So that's an amazing part of it, is you bump into everybody.
Now, you are one of the great drummers of our time. Now, tell me, I want to know how you got started and what was your first break in the music industry?
Oh boy, I started really young because my father had a band and he had a new drummer. I was about 3 years old and I kept bumping into his drum kit. So I started playing drums and I just listened to lots of records. I had lots of idols. Buddy Rich, Louis Bellson, G. Krupa, you name it, you know. And wow, went on from there, you know.
And what was your first break into the industry?
Well, the first thing professionally was I joined my dad's band in 1969. I was 12 years old.
Wow.
But the youngest guy in the band was 30. But it was a professional gig. I was reading music and playing. 4 years with him. And then after that, people that have played in the band, like this whole music business, it's all about who you know.
Yeah.
And recommendations from like one guy that, oh, I know a good drummer, blah, 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 blah. And then before you know it, in those days, you start doing a lot of sessions. These days is a little different because the music business has changed.
Yeah, it's more corporate.
Yeah, and there's not so many opportunities for people to play. There weren't machines in 1973.
Yeah.
In order to do a demo, you had to hire musicians.
Yeah.
You couldn't go down to Guitar Center, buy something and hit play. You just couldn't do it, which was how come there were a lot of musicians.
Now tell me...
Sorry, let me amend that. A lot of in-work musicians.
Now, what was your first gig where you said, I've arrived?
Probably every single...
Really?
Yeah, I mean, that's really hard because sometimes you don't realize it when it's happened. I guess when you turn up to a studio and you've been booked to do an album and you know who the album's for and you have all his records at home, you're a big fan, and suddenly you're employed to play on his record, and you've got to appear very professional. That was kind of strange.
Now tell me how the relationship with Pete Townshend started. How did you get that Pete Townshend gig?
Well, Pete Townshend told me himself he had heard me play on a record by a guy named Gordon Giltrap, who was a folk guitarist. I played on about 3 of his records, and Pete was a big fan of this guy, Gordon Giltrap. And he just got his management to find me and book me for a session. And that's how it happened. And the first thing we played was Empty Glass. So it would have been like I'm an Animal, one of those songs.
Rough Boys?
I didn't play on Rough Boys. That was Kenny Jones.
Okay.
But I played on... we kind of shared the album between us. Between Mark Brzezicki, Kenny Jones, and myself. We played on a few tracks each.
Mark Brzezicki, he went on to be in Big Country.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and okay, so then after you worked with Townshend, you ended up being in The Who after Kenny Jones.
Yes.
Now was that just a simple thing for them to call you, or how did that come about?
Well, no, that was a little more complicated. Basically, The Who had really, I guess, stopped touring and stopped making records in 1982. It's Hard was the last record, and they did a US tour in 82. And that was really it.
Yeah.
Pete wasn't interested in touring anymore. However, Live Aid, Bob Geldof organized Live Aid, and The Who agreed to play. But after that, I guess Pete, I had done some solo stuff with Pete, and he just wanted a change. And so he wanted to go out with The Who, but he wanted me to go out there with him. So he approached me actually about 2 years before.
Now had being with Pete as a solo artist kind of taken away the sting of going and playing out there with The Who?
Not really. I mean, before then I had been playing with Mick Jagger, and I'd done a lot of pretty high profile stuff. So it wasn't, I mean, yes, it was to be in the middle of Giant Stadium with The Who was, yeah, wow. But on the other hand, it's a gig.
Yeah,
You have to do.
It's always a job, isn't it?
Yeah, it
no
is.
matter what. I mean, people
It's a
think
great
that-
job.
Is there ever the moment when there's self-realization where you say, I am here, I am doing this, this is real, this is my dreams have come true? Or is it always like you get off stage and watch a tape of it and go, hey, that was fun?
Usually you don't watch a tape of it straight after the show. In fact, the last thing you want to hear or see is probably what you just played. I'd rather go into the bus or into my hotel room, put on some Miles Davis or, just something totally different. It's funny with me, it's been such a gradual process that I've never really felt like, wow, this is it. But I've always felt very honored to have the opportunity to play in the situations I played in. So I guess it's very English, isn't it? It's very kind of reserved, my judgment.
It's good. Now, tell me, how did the UK, where you replaced Bozio for a TV show in UK with the band that had John Wetton and Eddie Jobson?
That's right, Eddie, John, and Terry. Purely politics. It was down to our beautiful British immigration. You may know that between England and America, for musicians, it's always been very difficult to come backwards and forwards. You have to have visas. Yeah, you have to have visas. And it's very expensive and very difficult to just do it for one TV show. And they just wouldn't grant Terry a visa to come in and do one show. So I knew both John and both Eddie. So they called me and said, would you just stand in for this, But that was the only thing. We never actually played together.
But then you turn up and you play on the John Wetton solo album, Battle Lines.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Did he call you up? Great album.
I'm trying to remember. I know I was in the process of moving here. German TV show in Cologne with Jack Bruce the year before.
Okay.
It was a Jimi Hendrix tribute.
I have that tape.
You have it?
Yeah.
Right, you have everything. And we had talked about it. And John and we first started working together actually back in when Asia was being formed.
Really?
Yeah, that was actually before that band was ever formed. John and we had already been playing together as the new, soon to be called Asia. But it went through a lot of changes before the world knew who Asia was.
Yeah.
But John obviously was there. So I kind of think we've been wanting to work with each other for many years. It took until 1992 before we could do it. And that was it. And we only managed to work a little bit on that record. Not much, actually. And that was it. And then he went back to England and I stayed out here. So,
Yeah, you know what? The thing about Battle Lines is that was the record that he should have made after he left Asia. You're working with Toto right now.
Yeah, I've been in Toto for 10 years now. And it's actually become a very big part of my life. I'm very involved with the band now, and I engineered the last record that we made. And we actually leave on Tuesday for Europe to continue our world tour. We're going to make a DVD. I may mix the DVD surround stuff for that. And we'll be touring really until August.
Great. Sounds awesome.
Great.
It's been so great talking
All
to
right,
you.
thank
Have a
you very
beautiful
much.
day.
The Blairing Out Show.